Becoming an ambassador to Israel? Can you do that on your own? We'll talk about it today with Dr. Alex Bligh in Faith and Freedom. Hi, I'm Shawn Akers, Dean of the Helm School of Government and Vice President for Middle Eastern Affairs with Liberty Counsel. Joining us again today in studio is Dr. Alex Bligh, former advisor to the Prime Minister of Israel on Arab Affairs and prolific writer and speaker. Dr. Bligh, thank you so much for being with us this week. It has been an incredible week of discussions with you. I'd like to pick up where we left off in our last show, though, and get your opinion on how Israel should conceive of its response to the Iranian threat.
Well, I'm not a great believer in a military action as a first resort, only as a last resort, always as a last resort. But I'm afraid that we're getting to the end of the line. We have tried everything up to sanctions. The Iranians do not seem to change anything, and they seem to continue whatever they're doing. For one reason or another, their nuclear scientists have been suffering from a mysterious virus, and they have disappeared to some extent, but still there are many more active over there. And I think that indeed we are fast approaching, I'm afraid, the point in which we would have to consider some other possibilities.
You know, in many ways, you have to ask the question. You have to really you don't have to be an expert in foreign diplomacy to ask some of the very serious questions. For instance, if someone has declared that they're going to shoot you, and you see them sit down to begin loading a gun, do you continue to just say they don't really mean it, that we're just going to ignore it and we need to keep speaking nicely and hope that things work out? That's not the way things work in the real world.
No, you're absolutely right, and more than that. We were taught by the Bible that if someone is about to kill you, you should preempt him. And Israel did strike preemptively back in June of 1967. And I think that, as you properly put it, if you see them already loading the gun, it is not for any other purpose but in order to shoot you. And this is exactly what the Iranians have been doing. And therefore, I think that speaking on legal terms, international law terms, if and when the free world will attack, and if it attacks Iran, that would be a definite self-defense, preemptive strike.
You know, nobody wants war, Dr. Bligh, but at the same time, as a matter of policy and as a matter of opinion polls in the United States and Israel, it should definitely be taken into account the reality and severity of the situation. One of the things I saw not too terribly long ago, when we as a nation or as nations consider any type of action, we usually do feasibility studies to find out what the impact is going to be. How is it going to impact our people? What are the likely number of deaths? What are the likely number of material costs? These are things that we consider. Iran, as I understand it, did a feasibility study to find out how much of its nation would be gone in a response to an Iranian first nuclear strike. In other words, it did a feasibility study of a nuclear suicide bombing in real essence. When you see that kind of writing on the wall, you can't expect any nation reasonably to ignore it.
Yeah. I agree with you, and not only that I agree with you, we have to remember that Israel, unlike Iran, is a tiny country. We are a country in size less than New Jersey, about, I believe, 3/4 of New Jersey. And New Jersey, as we all know, is not one of the largest states of this country. Iran, on the other hand, is 80 million people, a huge country. And you're right. If indeed they would be hit one way or another by any power or another, the damage would be such that they would be able to sustain. If, God forbid, we are hit, there is no Israel, pure and simple. And therefore, we are not in any condition to take any risks. And this is why I believe that eventually we will have to take a preemptive attack or move or whatever term you would like it. However, we must remember Israel is a small country, not only in terms of its size and its population. It is also small in terms of its armaments, army, etc. I don't know, and obviously it is not for me to decide, whether Israel can go at it alone or not. Now, we must understand, Iran is threatening Israel, but not only Israel. It has been threatening the free world at large.
That's right.
And the free world at large, like it or not, will continue to be led for the years to come by the United States of America. And therefore, I think that any action should be done in agreement with the United States, and I believe that a strong, united free world coalition, similar to the one that operated against Saddam Hussein, should be put in place in order to take the necessary actions.
I could not agree with you more. And you make just a really interesting point, and it's one that I'd love to discuss in the few minutes that we have left. Israel being such a tiny nation and having such a wonderful relationship with the United States, it's hard to keep in mind that this nation, the smaller than New Jersey, has produced and has produced some of the greatest technological advances in the history of mankind, and has, in a very real sense, become a bastion of human rights. And an economic power. In a time when the whole world is suffering economic woes, we're following people like Shai Agazi and Shvat Shaked that are showing the incredible talent that lies in the Israeli economy. It seems to me, Dr. Bligh, that the American people and the Israeli people have much other than just war and defense in common that we could be working on together, and that would strengthen both of our nations at the same time.
Well, I couldn't agree more. Well, I think that the basis for it all is the fact that we're sharing the same values. We're fighting for democracy. We have our freedoms. We can speak up our mind. And this is something that you can see in Israel and in the United States, and this is the basis of it all. Now, when you have a free society, when you have free spirits,
Yes.
when you have the freedom to do whatever you wish, then you can do whatever we're doing. And I think that it is not just a coincidence that the Silicon Valley in the United States and the high-tech development in Israel are now two leading industries in the world. First,
agree.
because of the free spirit. Secondly, because we are a small country, and we need to develop our resources. And until recently, we did not know that we had natural resources. Now we are about to be the number 2 country on earth in terms of natural gas.
Right.
But I am so glad that we did not find it until recently. Otherwise, we would have been a one commodity economy, very much like the Saudis. And just compare. The Saudi GDP per capita is somewhere under 20,000. Our GDP per capita, no oil whatsoever, is closer to 30,000 GDP per capita.
You know, and it shows. We've had that. I've had that discussion with many Israeli leaders, and so many have had the exact same sentiment that you have. That it was a blessing, not a curse, not to have large reserves of oil, because it brought out of the Israeli people talent and skills that there wouldn't have been a call for had there been some great natural resource. So the Israeli people, the Jewish Israeli people, really are Israel's greatest natural resource. This is something that the American people can learn, that the American people can become the greatest resource of the United States. This is exactly, ladies and gentlemen, what the founders said, and it's something that they got not from their own ideas, but through a Judeo-Christian ethic that doesn't just trace back to Europe, but if you follow it, traces all the way to Jerusalem. If you'd like to find out more about this relationship between the United States and Israel, please visit us at lc.org or call us at any time at 1-800-671-1776.